A man stops to help a woman change a flat tire on the side of the road. A simple act of kindness he's done before, but this time the consequences are anything but ordinary. The next morning, a black SUV arrives, hinting at a chain of events that will change his life forever. Hello everyone and welcome to today's tales. I'm excited to share a new story with you. Let's get started. Rick's life hasn't exactly been a bed of roses. From childhood to old age, Rick had been through so much mentally, emotionally, and maritally. As a child, Rick was raised by toxic and abusive parents who beat him and verbally abused him at the slightest provocation. He managed to get away from his biological parents at the age of 9, but he didn't get along so well with his foster parents, and as a result, Rick made a lot of bad choices as a teenager without parents to care for him. Rick dabbled in the world of drug addiction and spent most of his adult life struggling to break free from the chains of drug addiction. Unfortunately, by the time he was able to get clean, he had lost his marriage, his children, and the opportunity to work at the company of his dreams. After several failed attempts to get his wife and children to return to him, Rick finally gave up and accepted that his fate was to live and die as a lonely old man. Fortunately, he had managed to get a job at a pizza place in the far part of town, and with his meager earnings, he could afford to take care of himself and his basic needs. Unlike other old men his age, Rick didn't have many friends. His only friend was his neighbor who lived down the street, and sometimes when Rick was bored, he would go over to his neighbor's house to spend time with him and his family. His neighbor, Mr. Freeman, was one of the people who pushed and helped Rick to get off his drug addiction. He was also the one who helped Rick get the job at the pizza shop because he knew Rick needed a steady source of income. In return for all the love and support Rick received from his neighbor, Mr. Freeman became a loyal friend. Rick became a loyal friend. Sometimes he would help Mr. Freeman with some chores around his house. Aside from Mr. Freeman visiting Rick occasionally, Rick never had anyone else in his house, and every time his doorbell rang, Rick was sure that Mr. Freeman would be at the door one day after working a late-night shift. Rick was driving home in his old truck when he spotted a young woman hunched over her car tire with a cell phone flash in her mouth. Rick didn't need anyone to tell him what was going on with the woman because he could see it from a distance. Rick wanted to pass her because it was late at night, and he needed to get home in time to watch his favorite TV crime show. But as Rick drove closer to where the woman was, he saw how frustrated she was and how she was struggling with the car jack. Without thinking twice, Rick pulled up behind the young woman's car and honked his horn to get her attention. Immediately, the young woman heard the horn coming from Rick's car. She turned in his direction and watched as Rick got out of his truck and walked toward her. "You have a flat tire?" Rick asked in a worried voice. "Yeah, that damn tire must have hit a nail or something," the girl replied with obvious frustration in her voice. "Okay, let me help you fix it," Rick said as he leaned over to lift the car with the jack. Rick noticed that the young girl seemed reluctant to let him fix the tire at first, but he understood that it was late at night, and it was not common for people to stop by and help strangers this late at night. "So where are you from?" Rick started a conversation. He intentionally started the conversation to help the young lady feel comfortable around him and to ease her mind. As he expected, the more the young woman talked to Rick, the more comfortable she became. According to the lady, she was returning from a night out with her friends, and about an hour into her drive home, she realized she had a flat tire. After the lady told Rick about herself, Rick told her about himself, telling her that he worked at a pizza place and had just gotten off the night shift. Gradually, their conversation moved from talking about her day to talking about her life in general. The young woman did not talk much about herself, but Rick did. He talked about his good friend and neighbor, Mr. Freeman, and about his regrets in life, and how much he missed his wife and children. From all that Rick told her about himself, the young woman could tell that Rick was remorseful about his past, and that he was just an old man who hadn't received the proper parental upbringing. A few minutes into their conversation, Rick removed the flat tire and replaced it with the woman's spare. When he was done, he grinned broadly and said, "I really enjoyed talking to you," then walked to his truck and drove away. The young woman enjoyed talking to Rick, but was more grateful to him for helping her fix her spare tire. She thanked him wholeheartedly for his help and drove off after Rick left. When Rick got home that night, it was too late to watch his favorite crime show, but he didn't mind. He felt more fulfilled helping the stranded woman, and it felt good to talk to someone who wasn't Mr. Freeman or his family. The next morning, Rick woke up early to work in his yard after he finished his daily workout routine. He did his laundry and cleaned up his house before eating breakfast. It was his day off, and Rick planned to spend the afternoon by himself. Then in the evening he would go over to Mr. Freeman's house to spend time with him and his family. Later that afternoon, Rick was watching a comedy show on television when he heard a soft knock on his front door. At first, he was confused because he wasn't expecting visitors and was sure his friend Mr. Freeman was at work. When the knock came a second time, Rick was forced to see who it was. When he opened the door, he was surprised to see a man in an expensive-looking suit and two other men standing by a black SUV in front of his driveway. They must be Rick. The man in the expensive suit asked, "Yes, I am. How can I help you?" Rick replied, "I'm Mr. Gerald, and I'm here on behalf of my younger sister." The man said, then showed Rick a picture of his sister on his cell phone. "Oh, did she get home all right?" Rick asked. Gerald's younger sister was the young woman Rick had helped change her flat tire the night before. Yes, she did, and she couldn't stop talking about the kind-hearted stranger who helped her last night. She also said that you reminded her so much of our late father and his stories. In fact, she insisted that I come and see you today. Gerald said, "But how did you find me?" Rick asked, "Don't you remember? You told Sarah many things about yourself, including the street you lived on. All we had to do was talk to some neighbors, and one of them pointed us to your house." Gerald replied, "Oh," Rick exclaimed, still not sure what to say next. "Sarah told me to give this to you," Gerald said as he handed Rick a white envelope. Just by touching the envelope, Rick could tell what was inside, and the moment he opened it to be sure what it was, he tried to push the envelope back to Gerald. "No, I can't accept this. All I did was help a stranded woman," Rick said, "and all she wants is to thank you properly for your kindness. Please don't say no. Sarah will not be happy." Gerald insisted and pushed the envelope back to Rick without saying another word. Rick burst into tears and hugged Gerald tightly. "Words cannot express my gratitude," Rick said as he fought back tears. "Thank Sarah for me. Please tell her. I truly appreciate this act of kindness." Rick said, "Don't worry. Sarah will be here to see you when she gets back in the country. She left this morning and will be gone for a while." Gerald said, "Please come in and let me make you a cup of coffee," Rick said, wanting to appreciate Gerald's kind gesture. "Thank you, Rick, but you don't have to do that." Gerald said something else. "Sarah told me that it was always your dream to work for the Golden Leaf Company. Well, I have some great news for you. There's a job opening at the company, and it comes with 3 months of training. I'll put in a good word for you and we'll need your resume," Gerald said with a big smile on his face, and the minute Rick heard that, he burst into tears again. But this time he was crying like a baby. His dream life was finally coming true, and he could not believe it. It all seemed too good to be true, but 4 months later, Rick's life changed in an amazing and unbelievable way. With the money he received from Sarah and the pay he received from his new job, Rick was able to afford to move into a neighborhood. Not only that, but he took his friend Mr. Freeman and his family with him, because they were the only family he had. He couldn't imagine life without them. From that time on, Rick maintained a great relationship with Sarah and Gerald, and they continued to treat Rick as if he were their own father. When you extend kindness to others, you often find that it comes back to you in unexpected ways, even in ways that seem too good to be true. Love this story? Tap the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Let us know how this story made you feel with a single word in the comments while you're at it. Check out the video currently on your screen. See you next time.